I finished a total of 12 books in February, and while I tried to stay on like a Gothic black romance theme, I'm such a mood reader and I quickly got off task, but here are the 12 books that I read and what I did like and did not like about them. So let's get into it. And these are in no particular order. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is Listen to Your Sister by Nina Fiel. I hope I said that right. And this one is about a trio of siblings who are going through this horrible night that has been linked to the older sister's nightmares that she's been having for years. And the first half of the book, it's not really easy to get into, but I stuck with it. And once the plot twist started twisting, it really picked up from there. And it turned into a real psychological slash body horror type of book. I was really impressed with the author's writing for it being her debut novel, and I was also really impressed with the story itself and how she dived deeper into different layers of psychological horror. And while it is or was a very good read, I wouldn't recommend this for horror book beginners because, again, it's very layered, it's psychological, and you have to really think to be able to keep up with this story. So overall, I think I gave it about 3.75 stars to 4 stars, just because it was a good story, it was black, it was horror, and I'm really looking forward to more work by this author. Also be aware of some content and trigger warnings in this book, not just some, there's a lot in here. And just be aware that this is an adult horror fiction novel. So, yeah, just keep those things in mind when you're looking to read this book. The next book is Sister Mine by Nalo Hopkinson, and this one is another adult fiction book with some content and trigger warnings and very adult themes in it. And this one is about two sisters who are twins. They were conjoined at birth, but also separated at birth. And that separation causes one of the sisters to lose her mojo that she was destined to have at birth, which causes her to feel like sort of an outcast with her very magical family because now her sister has all the mojo and she is like flourishing with her powers. She wants to get out of her sister's shadow, so she tries to move away and start a new life somewhere else, but their father goes missing and she is kind of brought back into the family and the drama of having to find out what happened to her father. You really can't go wrong with a Nalo Hopkinson book. Her writing is flawless. She just puts you in the story. For it to be taking place in Canada, it feels very tropical. There's a lot of Caribbean mythology and folklore in this story. And overall, it's just a good time. I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book is When the Night Whispers by Savannah Wells, and this book is the vibe that I was going for the month of February. It's black with horror and romantic themes in it. It's about a woman and her daughter who move back into her childhood home after her mother passes away, and there's a neighbor who is very mysterious, and as they get to know each other, she finds out that he is not who or what he is supposed to be. And she develops this really dark relationship with him that spirals into something very sinister. So I read this book right after watching Nosferatu, and it does give very Nosferatu vibes, but kind of more contemporary in modern times. And while the story was very interesting and the writing was really good, it's a very slow burn story. And there were times where I wanted the author to kind of get on with it, but she took her time and the story develops very well, but it kind of gets rushed at the end. So I give it about a 4.5 stars. The next book is This Cursed House by Dale Sandine. And to be honest, I got an advanced copy of this book last summer and started it, put it down, and didn't pick it back up until a couple weeks ago. And while the writing was very good, it was a very interesting plot to this book. It's just the main character was making some very questionable decisions, and I was just like, girl, what are you doing? Like, if you're gonna write this type of book, it needs to be believable, and the main character was making some very, very dumb decisions. but it was an okay book. It's about a woman who is from Chicago and she's kind of down on her luck at the moment, and she gets a job offering from a family in New Orleans to be a tutor. She has nothing to lose, so she goes to New Orleans to kind of start her life over, takes the job, and very quickly discovers that this job is not what they said it was going to be, and she's actually needed to break a family curse. The book gives good dark gothic vibes, but it was just a 3.5 star read for me. My next read is Honeysuckle and Bone by Trisha Tobias, and I'm very surprised that nobody is talking about this book. First of all, it's a beautiful cover, and overall, it's a really good book. While it is YA, it doesn't read like YA, and I like that all of the characters in this book are black, which is probably why nobody's talking about it, because it's not something you see often, especially with YA, where all the characters and love interests are black. So this one, they're all black. And it's about a girl who goes to Jamaica to take a job as a nanny for a very successful black family in Jamaica. But she quickly discovers that this estate has very deep secrets, and she is harboring a very deep secret of her own. And like I said, this doesn't read like a YA book at all. However, I am questioning the decision of the narrator in the audio version, because that lady, I'm so sorry, but if you're gonna write black characters, then please use a black narrator. I mean, I think she was black, but she did not sound black, and it really threw off the audio version of this book. And so I really had to knock off a star, just because I listened to most of this on audio, and I just couldn't really get with the narrator's voice and Jamaican accents. But the story is very good. It's very haunting. It's gothic, but it gives like this island tropical vibe to it that just pulls you in and makes you want to continue reading the book. So overall, I give it 4 stars. Okay, the next book I finished in February was Children of Anguish and Anarchy by Tomi Adeyemi. Here's the thing. I reluctantly bought this book when it first came out last summer. And I say reluctantly because I really loved book one, but something felt off about the end of book two. And I was like, I don't think I want to continue the series because I think I know where this is going. And I was right. Overall, I was aggressively disappointed with this book and how the series ended. Because what in the Wakanda Forever was this? The way this book played out was exactly what I hated about Wakanda Forever. Because why are we moving the focus away from Orisha? And, I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to spoil the book, but I feel like this book had every YA fantasy trope ever. The chapters were too short and there were too many POVs. I think Amari's POV was just kind of pointless in this book. The plot was very lazy and the whole book just seemed thrown together. Like, this whole book just felt off, and sadly, I just knew this was going to happen after reading book two. And maybe she just had to put something together real quick because of the movie, in which I'm very excited about the movie. There is no clear resolution to the conflict among the Orishans in this book other than them putting their differences on hold to fight something else. Yeah, I'm just so incredibly disappointed in this book series, in this book particular. Like I said, book one was amazing. I was loving book two up until like the end, and I just knew where this book was gonna be headed, and I gave it a chance, and I was right, and extremely disappointed with this one. I give it 2 stars. The next book is a reread. I think I read this book like maybe 3, 4 times already. And it's The Undead by Kelsey Green. It was also a book vibe that I was going for the month of February because it's a horror romance. It's very short, and it's about a woman who is on a speed dating event with her friend, and it quickly turns to chaos because there is a virus that broke out and people are turning into zombies. And it so happens that everything hits the fan while she's on this speed dating event. So it's her and her best friend and her love interest that are fighting for their lives to try to make it to safety. This is one of my favorite horror romance reads because it's short, it's sweet, it has a good plot. There are some grammatical errors in the actual story itself, but overall, it's a really good horror romance story. The next book is Declan by Drea Anderson, and it fits the vibe that I was going for this month, and I was going to stop everything and read it anyway because it's Drea Anderson. She is one of my favorites in the paranormal romance game, and I will read anything that she drops. However, I'm more of a fan of her shorter works. When it comes to her longer length novels, they get real overrated real quick. The story gets real predictable and the insta love starts to feel very unbelievable, but I went with it and it was okay. It's about a woman who's dealing with her overbearing mother and the passing away of her father, and she meets the new leader of this motsy society of shifters, and they instantly fall in love but have to battle each other's past to kind of move forward. There's nothing really special about this, but I still read it. I give it about a 3.5 stars. The next book is Frenemies with Benefits by Cynthia Williams, and this is the third book in the series, and it follows Tracy, who is a bed and breakfast owner, and she just kind of found out about her husband and her receptionist having an affair behind her back. Then she's also kind of forced to work with this guy who she used to have a crush on in high school, and they developed this kind of frenemies with benefits relationship, and that's pretty much the book. I didn't find anything wrong with the book. For what it was, I'd give it 5 stars. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Next book is Adulthood Rights by Octavia E. Butler. I started this book on audio last summer, and I got about to 80% of it, and I think I ran out of Spotify listening hours, and I just didn't want to continue the story after that. I really enjoyed Dawn, and when I got to this book, the first maybe 20, 30, 40% of it was really good, especially with Hakeem's situation. But then it just went kind of downhill from there, and I didn't really want to continue this story anymore. It definitely wasn't the writing because Octavia Butler is a master writer, but I just lost interest in the story and where the direction of the plot was heading. If you haven't read book one, which is Dawn, it's about a group of humans who are taken off planet to be reintroduced to humanity by an alien race. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to spoil it. Overall, I give this book 3 stars. And lastly, I finished Signs and Sky Mates by Dace Vietrino. I'm not sure if I said that right, but this is a nonfiction book that goes over astrology and the signs' compatibilities with each other. And for someone who's never been really into astrology outside of, just my typical zodiac sign, this book was very eye-opening to how I interact with other people in the world. And I learned so much about myself and how I interact with my family and other people in my life. This book goes over so much information, but in such a reader-friendly way, such a beginner-friendly way. After reading this, I was very able to interpret my birth chart and see where I can improve and make changes within myself, and I was able to see what I'm really good at. I will definitely use this book as a reference when meeting new people going forward, and overall, I give it all the stars. No pun intended. And I know I said lastly, but I didn't mean that. Lastly, on Sundays, She Picked Flowers by Yaya Schofield. This was my favorite read of the month, of the year, of my entire life. This book is a top 5 read for me. And what's so sad about it is that I didn't get a physical copy before it was pulled from the shelves because it has been acquired by Saga Books, I think, and will be re-released in 2026. I want a physical copy of this book so bad. And I don't even think I was supposed to read it because it's supposed to be pulled because it's acquired by a new publisher. But I was able to get a book from my library through Libby. The thing is, I had to read it on my phone on the Libby app because this book is not available to read with Kindle because it's not on Amazon anymore. So I had to read it entirely on my phone. And oh my God, it was so worth it. I can't wait for this book to be released. It is the perfect, cozy, cottagecore horror, but black. It's so black. The vibes in this book are so perfect. It's about a woman who unalives an important person in her life, and she flees and she goes to live somewhere else where she's not known for what she did. And she ends up in this cottage, and things just get more haunting and scarier from there. I can't really explain much more to you without spoiling it, but this is the black, cozy cottagecore horror we've been looking for. It was so perfect. This is a 5-star read and a top read of all time for me.